So I want to begin by acknowledging the lineage that you are sitting in. And my teacher, Ruth Dennison, I said in my small group that I wouldn't be here without her. She was the first teacher to lead women's retreats, to integrate movement into Vipassana. And she basically created the center herself as a single woman. And so she was the first woman teacher empowered by the great teacher, Burmese master Ubakin over there. It was a radical tradition because Ubakin was a lay teacher. Most of the teachers were ordained monks. He was a lay teacher and in the Burmese government, in the Trade Commission, running the trade and different economic things. And he empowered women and was very committed to making the teachings accessible to the lay community. So just deep honoring and respect to a radical tradition. And then I've been the first teacher to lead Vipassana retreats for the queer community. And this is the first ever retreat that is centered around liberation and ending the genocide in Gaza in the Vipassana tradition. So firsts and firsts and firsts. And then as a 74-year-old in remission, but who knows, you are the next holders of this lineage, receiving the teachings. And really, that's, well, I don't want to name Dena in that older bracket that I'm in, but because she's young and thriving still. But for me, you know, with my energy still a little bit limited, and I'm very exhausted at the moment. But I have had a cup of coffee and chocolate. That is why I'm teaching, because I do hold you, each of you, as activists and also truth seekers, as the recipients of this lineage that has been born and lived through many generations from, I should just say one other thing that was radical. The farmer was a teacher of Ubakin, and because he was a farmer who had awakened, no one would listen to him. He had to pay his the workers on his farm to come and listen to his Dharma talks. And so, and then the word got around. So anyway, it's an unusual lineage and a radical one, and we continue in that tradition. And Ruth said to me often, she said, you know, I know that I used to talk about my teacher, but I really didn't feel like I didn't offer enough gratitude to him. And it's only as I come close to my death that I realize what a powerful influence he was. And I can say that for Ruth, though I said and bowed down to her many, many times, that as I age, I feel the deep, deep gift of a teacher who was personal in ways that all the other teachers I met weren't, that she had the center, that I could live with her, that she could train me outside meditation instructions, and that I saw in her a dedication that was continually inspiring. And I want to, could we close the door a little bit. It's just to wake up, I had a cold shower and now I'm like, oh, a little chilly. We can open it again. That's good. Thank you. So just to say greetings to you that I can't see outside. I'm missing not seeing you, but I know you're there. One day we were driving back from LA. Her house was in Hollywood. And we're driving back and it was late, maybe even 11 or midnight. And she just stopped the car. We were on the dirt road that most people don't use anymore because it's so bad, coming here. And she just stopped the car and got out. And I was like, what the hell? I thought maybe she was going for a pee. But what I saw is that she went to the side of the road and she picked up a rock, it looked like a big rock, and carried it and carefully put it down on the other side. And then she picked it up again and carried it and put it down. She did that maybe 5 times. I said, Ruth, what are you doing? And she said, I don't want to lose mindfulness. I want to stay awake for all my experiences. And that's what I needed to do to stay awake. And I'm a very imperfect receiver of her Dharma. And she continues to inspire me. When I gave meditation instructions yesterday, I talked about the definition of sati as standing by or bearing witness to. And I have on my refrigerator a picture of her right after she died, and her hands of, I don't know who it was, just like holding her head like this. And in that picture was clear, this incredible love for a teacher. And it's not that I know you all. Many of you I don't know well. Some of you I know a little well. But I want to hold you in that way. Because the most beautiful transmission that I received from her was on my first retreat. Well, I've received many transmissions, but this was the turning around. And I'm saying this to those of you who have asked such beautiful questions about these teachings and political activism. And I had mentioned in my small group that I was in total rebellion all the time, and we fought. And she would talk about karma, and I would give her Marxist answers, and we just fought all the time. And I thought she was a crazy woman, and I was never going to come back. And in the last metta meditation, she had collected the petals of some roses that a student had brought her and put them in a basket, and we were sitting in a circle. And she went around and took a handful of petals and showered them on each of us and offered us a blessing of love. Each blessing was a little bit different. And the love was so palpable that something broke through my hard defense. And I can only say this in retrospect, because I still was like, I'm not coming back. But then when some of my friends came to where I was living and said, oh, we just want to pick something up, we're going to the retreat, the women's retreat, I said without any previous thought, can you wait a minute, I'm going to grab some clothes, I want to come. And then that was the beginning of a 10-year training. And I count, as I've said, this training as one of the greatest blessings that I've received in my life. And now I want to tell one other story, which is very personal, and which is why I said to Alexi, I don't want you to record this, but we can always delete the recording. I mentioned that I grew up in South Africa and that my parents were activists. If you look my parents up, you'll see them on the web, Monty and Myrtle Berman. They were in the African resistance movement, an underground movement that believed in sabotage and violence. And they both were extraordinarily courageous. My mother drove into the residences that were separated because of apartheid African communities to teach miners to read and write, to help with the organizing that, drove alone, and everyone thought that she was, crazy. My father was involved in prison escapes and arms smuggling and sabotage and all kinds of things. They were arrested. My father was tortured. And they both were amazingly, beautifully moved in support of the ending of apartheid. And my father raped me. And so I come to understand liberation as more than a political calling or ideology. That in order for us to build relationships and community, family and partnerships, the work has to be more than organizing an end to repression and violence, state violence. It has to be more. And I want to say one more story. So I broke silence in my family. I have 3 sisters. No one believed me. They just said I was crazy, and I felt crazy. And I left England, where we were living, and I went to, I came here. Anyway, came into the Dharma, and actually this was before the Dharma. But I lived on country women's land and gone through consciousness raising groups and had been involved in feminist and Marxist activities in the Bay Area and all kinds of things. And I had my first inkling of what it meant to connect with the land and in that relationship begin to heal, living on this farm, our farm, Oregon Women's Land, that was land for women. And I visited my home. And this is after there was my sisters came to their own memories and had confronted my parents, both of whom refused to believe us. And I walked into the office of my father, who was at this point a psychologist and an acupuncturist. And there was a picture of me nude in his professional office. And my mother had walked into that room countless times and had never said to him, take that photograph down. So I'm talking about cultures of wounding in the heart of incredible courage and resistance. How do we know the truth? How do we know the truth? Because it can't just be conceptual. Because anyone can argue with anyone about anything using any concept. What is it? What is it that communicates to us what is truth? And I don't mean truth as a concept. I mean truth as a way of living, as wisdom. And what is wisdom and truth as a way of living if it doesn't include the kind of love and caring that isn't distorted by trauma? And if truth and love and wisdom are the ingredients, then how do we carry our trauma? Because if we don't name it in the ways that my parents didn't name it, then it comes out. And so, and this is life and death, so I want to tell you one more story. Could we close that all the way? Thanks. So the arm was organized like the underground resistance in France during the Second World War. Cells, different cells, where there was only one person, the main coordinator, who knew everyone in the cells. And the main coordinator of ARM was this young man called, Jewish man, Adrian Lefwich. And Adrian Lefwich was arrested like everyone else during mass arrests that happened in the late 50s, early 60s. And many people were tortured. And he wasn't really tortured. They punched him up a bit. And he was so scared that he gave the names of everyone in all the cells. Mm. And he wrote a book, he wrote an essay in Granta, and he said, I always felt a basic inadequacy, an insufficiency, and I wanted to prove that I was powerful and strong, and so I took that leadership position. But I knew deep down I shouldn't have. And I want to speak, so that there were, before I go to that next sentence, many people were arrested and tortured when he turned state witness. The Buddha said that each one of us is born with, and I'm going to use the word neural network because he does give in the Abhidharma a very complicated breakdown of the way consciousness works inside of us, but because we're just a 2-day retreat, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to rest some of what I said on Dena's beautiful talk yesterday because it was so comprehensive and gave us such a lovely wide ground of the Dharma. each of us has, in part, an experience of insufficiency, of inadequacy, of not enoughness, of feeling as though we were single and alone, even when we have tons of friends and are partnered or whatever, of feeling somehow that we that whatever it is not good enough, that of a kind of emptiness or an alienation, and different expressions of that live a little differently inside of us. Inadequacy, insufficiency, not good enough, alone, not belonging, that's the other one, not belonging, that nowhere do we belong, really belong. And that every human being is born with this. Out of this comes a need to find something to deal with this, to ameliorate it. And the energies that come out of this are that energy of clutching, attachment, ownership. This is me and mine. I can't find me and mine, so this is me and mine. And it can be an ideology, can be clothes, it can be property, it can be ownership. It is our body, it's our thoughts and emotions. Everything gets grabbed onto as this is me and mine. I have to find something that is a little stable that I can say, oh, here I am. It can also be, this is not me. I hate this. I'm angry with this. I have to defend against this. That's another expression, that there's just a lot of anger and defense and resentment and bitterness and judgment and fighting, resistance. Or it could be confusion. I don't know where the hell I am. What's going on? What's happening? The Buddha said that these three root energies, greed, hatred, and confusion, are the roots of all suffering. And that everyone experiences suffering as a human being. And these are the roots. We also have a different capacity and wiring. And that is the capacity for generosity, renunciation, morality, ethics, patience, loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, making courageous effort. We have also the capacity for all these beautiful qualities. Every human being, he said, the definition of a human being is that a sentient being, a human being, always has these both this in what feels like an inherent insecurity and also capacities to love unconditionally and to awaken, to be free. And that the root insecurity and insufficiency that keeps moving to grab onto something actually can be healed. So Adrian Leftwich was moving in his insufficiency and inadequacy, as was my father in his sexual addictions. They were moving in this confused way to find something to hold on to, including me in my own harming that I've talked to you about, when I was confused about what the hell is going on. I am just hating everything. So this path of liberation is very explicit where the healing energies are, which are called the wholesome energies, and where the energies are that continue to bring harm and suffering. And we can brainstorm those, the leaves of the root trunk, right? Revenge, jealousy, keep going. Craving, addiction, greed, delusion, aversion, judgment, shame, blame, guilt. They all come from that root of ignorance, of not seeing where freedom is. Acting out, not because we're bad people, but acting out of those energies in the misunderstanding of where liberation is. And I include, that's why I told you the story about my parents. We are dedicated to this practice of paying attention to what's happening inside of us so we can begin to discern what is the root of my thoughts and behavior. Because if I can't tell, it's likely that I'm acting out of that conditioning, because capitalism and imperialism and colonialism condition all those energies of greed, right? Hatred, right? Lacking in respect and caring. So those are conditioned and reinforced. So it's likely we're acting out of that unless we are paying attention. Unless we're present. And how are those energies healed? Through that relationship of presence and caring. I see you, hatred. I see you. And I know my work is not to keep acting out of you, because I know the repercussions will always bring suffering. To say it another way, there is nothing that is clarifying in ending suffering in any of those energies that come from that insufficiency, anger, greed, and confusion. There's nothing that is wholesome in them. In this tradition, it's very clear, at least taught. And I found that in my own life as well. So how can I call in patience, generosity, renunciation, loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, and all the beautiful energies through the power of intention? Intention is the great engine of transformation and liberation. What is my intention? What is my intention? In these teachings, every intention is a seed, and it's sown in the river of our being. And that's where we are deeply empowered. So yesterday when I was leading metta, I said, if I can't feel love now, may I? And I know in that may I, I'm planting a seed. I can't do it now, but may I? I can't meet you now, but may I, Arinna, be able to meet you whenever I can. I understand there's a lot that's going on now, and it's hard, but I want to. What am I intending? What are we intending? And part of that intention, if we don't want to perpetuate harm, because I totally believe that my parents did not want, or Adrian Leftwich did not want to perpetuate harm. It took my mother a long time. When she was 92, she finally admitted that it was possible that my father had sexually abused us. 4 of her daughters. She admitted it finally. It was a possibility. And she couldn't do it beforehand because she couldn't open to that pain. That's why I feel so deeply committed to us learning ways to open to our feelings of however they live as trauma inside of us. Because if we don't, they come out in ways that where we don't understand and don't even see the consequences when it's right there in the family. And it's not because they were bad people, though I must say that I hated them for years and refused to relate to them. But most of all, it's us, that love that lives in our hearts already, that wants to love ourselves. It is the truth and wisdom that already lives inside of us that wants to inquire into the truth. And we can't discern clearly if there is trauma there. We can't. And why is that, from my perspective, from the police in South Africa that were willing to murder and kill innocent people, to when they arrested my mother at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night and said, "You're under arrest, Mrs. Berman," like, 2 big hulking policemen. And so she says, "Well, let me go and change." And they walked into the bedroom with her and she said, "I'd like, could I please change in my bedroom?" There was no escape from her bedroom, but they refused. She had to. They refused to let her change. Like just that belief that they were doing the right thing. How could they not know that? Because they hadn't done this work. Not bad human beings. They hadn't done this inner work to feel, because it's not a feeling as an emotion, but a lived experience of being open to other human beings and wanting to care for them. It's a lived experience. And when we have ideological definitions of you are a bad person because you're fighting apartheid, and so you don't deserve to be treated respectfully, can you feel into how shut down the heart is? And that's what's going on in the world. It's not bad people. It's that people haven't had the support to do this work. And some of us here are kicking and screaming about doing the work, I understand why, because I was too when I first heard these teachings. I was so angry. I was like, fuck you, Ruth. Because it was so painful to begin to sit with myself with all that trauma. I was agonizing for years. But something inside of me wanted to find the truth. As it does inside all of you, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And this then is, I believe that this movement of liberation where we each learn from the generation before us, it's a long trajectory. We keep this liberatory internally. I don't like that expression. We are committed to the healing of our trauma so that we can heal trauma outside of us. And we can't do that without it. And that means, how do we contain harm? How do we stop harming? And how do we change our relationships so that we actually can create refuges? And I am an imperfect teacher. I am really imperfect. And I'm an imperfect community member. I make mistakes and I hurt, continue to hurt people. And I keep working at it. And I do have total faith, absolutely undying faith, in the beauty of what we're doing and in the healing of it. And that when there isn't trauma, how we do the work is most likely to succeed. I don't think it's helpful at all, really, to talk about should we use violence or not. Because I trust you that in the situations where you are not reacting and where you have done the work of healing, that what you decide will be appropriate. Because you can feel into what contribution is most beneficial given the landscape that we're living in. And you know that, and you know it better than me. But I can say absolutely clearly that that an open heart, an undefended heart is the ground of all revolution. That will be sustainable. That will be sustainable. This is just 2 days. Honestly, I hope I see you again. We need more time together. Yeah. So I want to end with one of my favorite poems. If I brought it? Yes. This is from the first Indigenous Poet Laureate of America, Joy Harjo, one of my favorite beings, poets and writers. She has a new book out. This poem was in her new book. It's called For Calling the Spirit Back from Wandering the Earth in Its Human Feet. Put down that bag of potato chips. No way. I love potato chips. Okay, so I'll start again. Put down that bag of potato chips, that white bread, that bottle of pop. Turn off that cell phone, computer and remote control. Open the door, then close it behind you. Take a breath offered by friendly winds. They travel the earth gathering essences of plants to clean. Give it back with gratitude. If you sing, it will give your spirit lift to fly to the stars' ears and back. Acknowledge this earth who has cared for you since you were a dream, planting itself precisely within your parents' desire. Let your moccasin feet take you to the encampment of the guardians who have known you before time and who will be there after time. Let the earth stabilize your post-colonial insecure jitters. Be respectful of small insects, birds, and animal people who accompany you. Ask their forgiveness for the harm we humans have brought down upon them. Don't worry. The heart knows the way through, though there may be high rises, interstate checkpoints, armed soldiers, massacres, wars, and those who will despise you because they despise themselves. The journey might take you a few hours, a day, a year, a few years, 100, 1,000, or even more. Watch your mind. Without training, it might run away and leave your heart for the immense human feast set by the thieves of time. Do not hold regrets. When you find your way to the circle, to the fire kept burning by the keepers of your soul, you will be welcomed. You must clean yourself with cedar, sage, or other healing plants. Cut the ties to failure and shame. Let go of the pain you're holding in your mind, your shoulders, your heart, all the way to your feet. Let go of the pain of your ancestors to make way for those who are heading in our direction. Ask for forgiveness. Call upon the help of those who love you. These helpers take many forms: animal, element, bird, angel, saint, stone, or ancestor. Call your spirit back. It may be caught in corners and creases of shame, judgment, and human abuse. You must call in a way that your spirit will want to return. Speak to it as you would to a beloved child. Welcome your spirit back from its wandering. It may return in pieces, in tatters. Gather them together. They will be happy to be found after being lost for so long. Your spirit will need to sleep a while after it is bathed and given clean clothes. Now you can have a party. Invite everyone you know who loves and supports you. Keep room for those who have no place else to go. Make a giveaway, and remember, keep the speeches short. Then you must do this. Help the next person find their way through the dark.